Boys, welcome. It is officially the second half of the baseball season opening up today, and it's a great time for some Miller Lights to
crack them,
yes.
Get them going, get the vibes going. Dog days, make sure you got your Miller Lite.
Absolutely, because whether it's a long weekend or a full-on vacation, it's prime time to get buddies together. Since 1975, Miller Lite has been the perfect way to stock up your cooler when you're finally together again. Gather your crew. It's Miller time. A taste you can depend on. A great beer trusted by beer lovers and their beer-loving friends for 50 years. Miller Lite, the official beer of the Chicago Bears. Go to MillerLite.com/stretch to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that they sell beer. Cheers to 50 years of Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Have a great baseball discussion today with Jesse Rogers of ESPN.com. And, we get into the whole first half. We look ahead to the second half. Some Cubs, some Sox, some National, some CBA talk. A lot there for you if you're a baseball fan. So, White Sox Dave, just wish us into that, please.
Whoosh.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Stretch, interview episode on Friday. Today we are joined by Jesse Rogers of ESPN.com. Jesse, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Good to talk to you guys.
How was the All-Star game? I saw you were there. You were yucking it up with the stars. Well, what's the big takeaway out of there? Who's the real stars of the stars?
Air conditioning. That was the real star.
Yeah.
We love air conditioning on this show.
Oh my God, it was hot down there, man. I was talking to Matt Olson a little bit. Like it's just you got to get used to it. You got to get used to it. And it's not the dry heat, that in Vegas or Phoenix or whatever. This is the humid kind of stuff that's going on down there. But anyway, you go from the hot to the air conditioned back and forth, and it is what it is. So it was fun. I liked that ending. It was a little different. I don't think anybody realized that could be a possibility until it almost was a possibility, the swing off. I do wish some of the stars would participate in Home Run Derby, right, the day before. My idea is the top 8 home run hitters in the first half a week before the All-Star game should be automatically in Home Run Derby and maybe paid handsomely to do that. But, I want to see the stars of the first half participating in Home Run Derby. So but it was still, fun to be there and all that stuff. And Pico Armstrong, just to localize it, man, he was everywhere. Everybody wants to be in the Pico Armstrong business, and you see why. His skill set, his personality just screams marketing, right? And the best thing about it, though, is that he's handling it well. You don't want that to eat him up and sort of take him off his game. I think he's got the right demeanor, at least so far, to deal with the pressure, the fame, and all that stuff, and compartmentalize it, and then go out and play some great baseball. And you saw him do it in the All-Star game. He had that double, and he's running all over the outfield. He's mic'd up. Just a great representative of the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, I don't know if we would accurately be able to tell a younger person just how cool the Home Run Derby and the dunk contest, for that matter, was just 25 years ago, right? It's crazy how far.
And the one thing, and I will say this, like Michael Jordan did stop doing the dunk contest, so I can't just point to, the stars did it every year there. They didn't, but they did for a while. They did and then they stopped doing it, and I think that has taken don't you agree? The 3-point contest has become more of a thing than the dunk, but in part because the stars don't always do the dunk. So same thing here, but Ohtani has done it. Judge has done it. So Schwarber has done it. It's just I'd still like to see them all do it together at once.
Yeah, but that home run derby, I feel like it peaked when it was Griffey, McGuire, Sosa, all those guys. Remember the one in Fenway?
Yeah.
That's
when everybody points to.
Yeah, that should be appointment television. As the format's even is better now. So if you have the current format with the A-list type stars, and we've all said that the baseball stars felt like they were bigger when we were kids, and maybe it's because they lent themselves to more things like that. So
when Schwarber went up there for the swing off, I tweeted something like, "We've seen this act before, even before he got into the box."
Yeah.
But was there any doubt he was going to hit some missiles? It was men versus boys in that swing off. So to your point, to see Schwarber, Ohtani, Judge, all in the Derby the day before would have been unbelievable. I mean, that would have really given it some juice. So the swing off was a little bit of a tease to see a guy like Schwarber in there. But yeah, you got to have the stars in these things. That's what drives eyeballs and everything else, excitement,
For sure. So Jesse, the Cubs at the break, third best record in all of baseball, but still only one game ahead of the Brewers. Is this different than the last 2 years, or is it just because the Brewers have become our Michael Myers that everyone is a little more scared, or do you see something different in this team?
Yeah, I think the Cubs are like the 15-year-old in the family, and the Brewers are like the 11-year-old that just get away, just get away, stop bugging me, and they just keep on coming. And I guess in the last few years, you could say that the 11-year-old's been better than the 15-year-old if you want to take the analogy all the way. They just have something going on up there, and I really think since the new rules, they're even better. They've leaned into that. Remember, and I don't understand why other teams don't do this. Speed and defense doesn't cost you money. That's why the Brewers can have those players, right? Slugging costs you money. And this is why I think there has been a ceiling to Milwaukee in the postseason, because that's a lot about, slugging the ball with so many good pitchers on the mound. You're not getting 4 or 5 guys on base every inning. You might get that 2-run home run, which is something Milwaukee doesn't have as much of. So I think that's why they're a good regular season team and maybe not so much in the postseason. But I do think this year's different. I don't think Milwaukee's going to overtake the Cubs. Look, could they overtake them for a day or two here? Yeah, I mean, they're a game out. Of course they could. But I do think the Cubs are a more rounded team, a better team. Milwaukee does have a better starting staff, especially with the addition of Mizorowski and Woodruff back. But I do think the Cubs are better, deeper. Obviously, the lineup is lengthier. I ran into Aaron Boone at obviously the AL manager, and he had just played the Cubs. And yeah, they beat him Friday, but lost Saturday and Sunday. And Boone honestly was just shaking his head to me. I didn't even ask him about the Cubs. He knows I cover him and everything because I worked with him at ESPN, and he's just shaking his head. He's like, that lineup is, I think the word he used was strengthy, instead of lengthy, he said strengthy. And, obviously number 9 with Matt Shaw is a little weak, but 1 through 8, it's as good as we've seen in Chicago in a long time and better than Milwaukee. And I think they have just enough pitching to hold out. But I do think this comes down to the final week. This isn't, my buddy Carmen DeFalco, Eddie, your guy, he's like, oh, they're going to win it running away. And that's disrespecting Milwaukee. I don't think they're going to win it running away. I do think they're going to win it.
Now, are they going to do anything at the deadline to strengthen and to be strengthy? What'd you call them? Strengthier?
Even more strengthy.
Yeah, more. Yeah. We got to be more strengthy. So the deadline's right around the corner. What are the Cubs rumored to be doing to kind of keep that 11-year-old, with a stiff arm on his forehead, just keep him down there?
Exactly. Look, I think what Jed did in the offseason is a good indication of what he'll do this deadline. He and Carter, outside their comfort zone with some of these moves. Obviously, I'm talking more about Kyle Tucker than anything. Like, that is not a trade Jed would have done a couple years ago. But we know the situation with Jed's contract, obviously. We also know the situation with the team. They haven't made the postseason a full year since 2018. Forget about 2020. It's been a while. It's been a while. So there's urgency there. We saw that in the offseason. I think we'll see the same urgency this trade deadline. I don't think anybody in the minor leagues is off limits. Now, obviously, there's some guys, even going down to single A or triple A, that they don't want to trade. But look, 2016 was the roadmap. They had a 99% chance of making the playoffs, and yet they still traded their best prospect for Aroldis Chapman. Gleyber Torres, I'm talking about. That's the roadmap. Now, that's Theo. He's a little bit more of a gunslinger than Jed, but I think Jed is still going to incorporate that mentality. I've got to go for it. I've got to improve this starting staff to help them get there, and then improve the bullpen to help them in October, just like Chapman did. So, I can't tell you the name they're going to get because there's so many out there. There's so many moving parts. I reported a while ago, Jed really likes Edward Cabrera in Miami. And I don't think that whoever they get has to be like a Game 2 playoff starter. The playoffs are around bullpens. And even if it's someone inexperienced, that doesn't mean he can't start a playoff game and go 4 innings, and then you go to your bullpen. which again, if they strengthen, will be a very good veteran group other than Palencia. So I think it's good arms. Just get me some good arms. Craig Counsell talks about 27 outs. This isn't the old days where the White Sox in 2005 had 4 complete games in the ALCS. So get me Edward Cabrera, even if he doesn't have playoff experience. Find me Merrill Kelly, who does have playoff experience. Herman Marquez. I don't know. The Twins have some names. I can't tell you who they're going to get. I could tell you it's at least a starter and it's at least 1 to 2 relievers.
Is there any concern that the Ricketts just kind of rug everybody here? Because, we talked about Bregman obviously before the season. That would have been a nice piece to add in there, but sounds like it was financial constraints put on them by the Ricketts that prevented that deal. Is that going to rear its head again before the deadline? We're like, hey, we're not taking on that guy. He's got term or whatever the situation might be. Is that going to be a factor?
My short answer to that is no. In the years I've covered this team, I've never heard of a July moment where Theo and Jed couldn't do what they wanted. Remember, whatever you're doing before the deadline is minuscule compared to what you might do in the offseason. Mm-hmm. You bring up Bregman. Bregman was a huge, huge commitment. You're getting a rental? It's a few million for the final 2 months. Now, if you're getting someone that's more than a rental, yeah, you've got to incorporate that in your budgets for the next few seasons. But whether it be Mitch Keller or someone, it's somewhat affordable. You're not picking up Aaron Judge's contract, right? So yeah. And most of it is rental type stuff. Maybe the guy's got an extra year. So I've never and Jed said something very revealing when he was asked this question recently. He was in the dugout and he's pointed out at the stands. He's like, look, this place has been full all year, which is telling us that Crane Kenny's cash register is full. This is the time of year where it's full. They're bringing in money at this point of the season, right? And so I think that in terms of that monetary commitment, I think Tom will okay it, barring you're picking up 4 or 5 years on someone's deal, and I don't even know who that would be. I guess okay. Alcantara, whatever. No, he doesn't have that long. So yeah, I think the short answer is he will okay whatever Jed wants. I mean, they were going to pick up Verlander, but it was Jed and Theo that said no to him. So I think that the money will be there for the shorter term rental or even a year, a guy that has a year or 2 on his deal.
Guys, shout out to Body Armor. We really would not be able to get through these interviews without them. True. They're the best. We got the frozen berry. You got the frozen cherry. These are the new chill version Body Armors, guys. So since this episode is brought to you by Body Armor, this summer you should cool off with BODYARMOR Chill. It's a bold new way to hydrate with no artificial dyes, flavors, or sweeteners. Like I said, you can enjoy a new refreshing cooling sensation in 3 impossibly cold flavors: frozen berry, frozen cherry, and frozen orange. Don't forget about the orange. Something about the word impossibly cold is needed,
especially when it's this 98% humidity, muggy air we got, Ed.
Yeah, I know. If you're going on a bike ride or you're doing whatever outside, you need some Body Armor.
Walking the dog 10 feet.
You really do. Exactly. You just need it, and it's available for a limited time. Grab yours at 7-Eleven or a store near you. So when you're on the road, just pull over, stop at that 7-Eleven, and go try out one of these new chills. They are worth it. So. Highly recommend it. Go check it out. Also, Vuori. Vuori is incredible, versatile, and comfortable, perfect for whatever your day brings, designed to look great beyond the gym. Whether you're running errands, heading to the office, or meeting up with your friends, the core short is the short that started it all for Vuori. It's soft, it's lightweight, it's got a 4-way performance stretch, it moves with you, no restriction. The breathable boxer brief liner allows built-in comfort and support. It's great stuff, Chief. I know you love
I'm wearing it right now.
What do you got?
I got the joggers on.
There we go. I love it. There's that V. Chuck up the V, baby. Listen, Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they're offering 20% off your first purchase. Go get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/stretch. That's VUORI.com/stretch. Exclusions do apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. order over $75 and free returns. Go to Vuori.com/stretch and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing. Exclusions do apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions.
Now, you said that you don't see the Brewers being a good playoff team for the obvious reasons. They don't destroy the baseball. Ball go far, team go far, as they say. But there are a lot of rumors, a swirl that they might be in the Eugenio Suarez sweepstakes as well. He's got 31 bombs this year. He destroys left-handed pitching. He is a really good hitter. That's something that the Cubs could use in their lineup as well. Obviously, they need starting pitching and relief help, but also someone who smashes left-handed pitching. What if the Cubs are outbid, or the Yankees or anybody else, and the Brewers do land Suarez? Do you see that really affecting things, or do you think they need more than just Suarez to make a real run at the division?
Yeah, no, I think, look, Suarez certainly is going to help, but one hitter for the final 2 months of a season, I don't think is the difference maker. Like, you still have 25 other guys that you have to perform that are on your team right now. Like, it helps, yeah, of course, but it doesn't help like a starting pitcher might, or even a back-end reliever who can pitch every other day. And you know what a starter can do every 5 days. So, look, if Suarez has the greatest final 2 months, obviously it has an impact. But I don't think the deadline is going to be the difference maker for Milwaukee. I also have my doubts that they're going to outbid the big boys. I mean, it's a weird year that so many teams need third baseman. I've never seen a year like that. I do know a lot of people are scouting Ryan McMahon as well, having an awful year, but you put him in a different lineup, maybe it's better, though he should always be hitting in Colorado, right? Leads the league in strikeouts, has a 212 average. But look, Andrew Vaughn was left for dead, and now he's like the toast of Milwaukee. So I think the prize would be Suarez, and then the second place would be Ryan McMahon. But you have the Yankees involved. You might have the Cubs involved, some other teams as well. So I'd be surprised if the Brewers stepped in and got Suarez. But the Brewers do have a good farm system. It's always about what the offer is. If they make the best offer, they could get him. I talked to Suarez at the All-Star game. He doesn't know if he's going to get traded. Great personality. Everyone loves him in the locker room. His agents are based in Chicago, so that doesn't hurt. Like, he's got a good vibe going here. So I think he'd be a good addition for anyone. I don't think the Cubs should worry too much about third base. I'm not saying you say no to Suarez. I've had this argument with Cap on the radio. Starting pitching and bullpen much more important to me than the number 9 hitter, who is, by the way, pretty close to a Gold Glove third baseman this year.
Right.
So I'm not saying you don't replace him, but I'm saying there's other priorities.
Yeah, like that's just thinking that they host the Red Sox this week, and man, it'd be nice if Bregman just stayed. But then it would hurt knowing he had to give stuff up when he could have just done it. In March. So I talked to Bregman as well at the All-Star game. We had a nice conversation. It was pretty interesting. I said, "Be ready, Chicago. You're going to get the questions." And I actually talked to him when the Red Sox played against the White Sox. But he said something very interesting. He said, this is what he kind of surmised on his own. He goes, "Look, I assume Cub fans aren't mad at me. They're probably mad at ownership because he just, he read what everyone else read, right?"
Correct.
And he goes, it's different in Detroit where the Tiger fans are actually mad at me because they think I turned down this, and he kind of did, but he also said the deal wasn't exactly, what was reported. But his basic thing was Tiger fans are mad at me. I don't think Cub fans are, and he's probably right. Like, no. There wasn't a deal to turn down.
Yeah. Back to the finances, the two lingering questions for the long term are extensions around both PCA and Tucker. Where are we on both of those? Because that is the thing where I just keep if they don't win it this year and they don't sign Tucker, then you might as well just
trade everybody,
rebuild.
Yeah.
And you did this lengthy, you said, haven't been in the playoffs since 2018. We were rebuilding for 7 years to get to this point. And then if you don't sign that, then it's over. So where are we with Tucker and then subsequently with PCA?
I'd also like to know, Jesse, if that's the question you've been asked the most at this point in your
Probably,
career
right?
about Kyle Tucker extension.
Can you imagine if the Cubs weren't in first place, how much that question would be asked even more? Like, at least we have a season to enjoy, and then the potential heartbreak that this All-Star walks away. Now, both All-Stars can't walk. PCA's got plenty of time here. We could start with him and that idea that there's plenty of time. I mean, there was a moment that they took a run at him before he became PCA, so to speak. It didn't happen. Now it becomes a little bit more complicated. I don't think anything's on the verge of happening with PCA at all, but that doesn't mean it won't heat up again. But it probably won't until the offseason or spring training, and you take a few more runs. But the calculus has definitely changed with PCA. But it's nice they have 4 or 5 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
Of course, people said that about Bryant and Baez and these other guys, and they all ended up walking. So it became a small, nice $75 to $80 million deal that could have happened, and now it's something that will be much bigger if it does happen. But at least there's time. Also, very quiet on the Kyle Tucker front. I've been reporting all season that there's been no negotiations. There's been no real contact, meaning, hey, let's negotiate. They're not even negotiating about when they're going to negotiate. There's just nothing there. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means nothing started. The needle to thread this thing is getting kind of smaller and smaller here, because maybe you could have blown him away once you traded for him. Maybe. Although I think he probably wanted to see what this place was like to hit in, to live in, and all that other stuff. But look, Steve Cohn signed up Francisco Lindor after trading for him. The Braves signed Matt Olson after trading for him. That didn't happen in this case. Now, the other side of that is maybe he has fallen in love with Chicago. I know he didn't like hitting here the first couple months. I'm not saying he hated it, but it was, nobody likes sitting here the first couple months. Yeah. But a little bit different now for sure. Certainly likes the atmosphere. There's nothing, he's had no negative experiences. But this is what I think is going to happen. Let me get my calculator out of my phone. The Cubs are going to get out their calculator. They're going to come up with a number that fits their budget. It's not going to be an emotional number. It's not going to be a number that's going to blow everybody away, but it's going to be a good number. It's going to be a good number. It won't be the max number. It just won't be. I think you guys would probably agree with it, but it will be a good number. I don't know when that offer is coming. Is it before November 1st or after November 1st, right? Because you want to take advantage of the exclusivity. Mm-hmm. I'd assume they'd make some sort of run at him before everyone else can. Hope that he signs up because he loves it here and maybe doesn't want the dog and pony show of going to all these other cities and the winter meetings and all this stuff. You hope that you cross your fingers. I think that's a small percentage. When you talk about it, he's working with a big agency. They're working for him. That wants to probably do their due diligence. Hey, what do the Yankees want to offer us? Yeah. What do the Dodgers want to say? So more than likely he goes to free agency, but there's always a chance even in free agency he comes back to the Cubs. It's just such a slimmer, smaller kind of lane for this thing to happen than would have 3, 4, 5 months ago, and we'll see. So it's not the best news, but it's also not the worst, because I do think all the ancillary things about him liking it here, and now that the summer's come, he's hitting here well. I think those things are good things.
What would the reception be, and what should it be if they don't re-sign him? Like, flat out.
Look, it's funny because when Rafael Devers was traded, it was so interesting to see the reaction. I guarantee you there were people that were happy, fans, that were happy the Boston Red Sox got out from under that contract, right? There were. We saw the reaction. But those same people would have been ticked off if the Red Sox had never signed him. Because think of, you know what I mean? You guys know this. The day you sign one of these guys to a huge, huge mega deal, it takes about a day after that for someone to say, oh, that's a bad deal for the team. He's never going to live up to that. The day you sign it is the day it starts to look like a bad deal. But that's the price of doing business and how the system works. You're paying guys well into their 30s when they're not going to be as productive. So my answer to your question is, there certainly will be an outcry. But if they put together a great team, if they take the $40 million a year and use it wisely elsewhere, then the outcry is less. It's about winning, right? It's not just about a guy, but it's harder to win without stars. So I don't want to play both sides of the fence here, because Tucker seems money in the bank, right, for years to come. But the Cubs do have a budget, and if it's eaten up, a lot of it, by one player, that might impact them elsewhere. The great teams, though, the great organizations, sign him and work elsewhere and bring in good and star players. So I would say that Jed and Carter are like could go both ways. Yeah, they want the star, but they don't mind the flexibility of that money that they don't pay him. But I still think, you know what, I'd rather have the money in the bank, the money in the bank, so to speak, with the player, because he's so good and so robotic and doesn't seem to slump and put up bad years. He certainly hasn't in the last few years of his career.
This is the thing where I get like annoyed and frustrated, where it's like the Cubs have a budget. Well, aren't they dealing with a similar situation as the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets? Like at some point, it's just like, why do the Cubs, a major market team, as you said, that the building's been full all year, why do they seem to have financial constraints that their peers don't?
It is a good question. Now, you got to go case by case. Steve Cohn writes checks at the end of the year, meaning he covers the Mets' losses. And we could argue whether the Mets are losing or not. That's the whole thing, the whole break-even line, the biblical losses line Tom Ricketts said to me years ago. Like, that's the debate in baseball. Are teams really losing money?
No.
Or do they just say they're losing money?
They say they're losing money.
But we can agree on one thing. The Dodgers are definitely not losing money.
No.
And they don't even claim that they are. So the Dodgers are spending from a surplus. That's one thing that we can be sure of. The Mets will claim they're not. They're losing money, and Steve Cohn writes a check to cover the losses. Now, that brings us to Tom Ricketts. Even if he was working at a loss or a break even, he could also write a check at the end of the year to cover things from his personal wealth. Mm-hmm. He chooses not to do that. He chooses to run it like a real business, like no business wants to lose money and doesn't always have the owner to cover it, but that's the debate. I cover this league, and I do understand that you can't tell me that the Tampa Bay Rays are in the same position as the Dodgers. Right. And they do get some money out. Like, we do agree that the big markets make more money than the small markets. But that doesn't answer your question about the Cubs versus the Dodgers or Mets, because those are three big markets.
Right.
So it is a choice by ownership to run the team the way they do. And even if they do lose money, they're not covering the loss to win games. And there is a debate whether they actually do lose or break even.
And it just feels like they see their peers as the Reds, the Brewers, the teams in the NL Central, as opposed to the teams that are the big markets that are continuously trying to win a World Series.
Yes, exactly.
I will tell you this for a fact, and I will include a lot of the smaller market owners, not smaller market because the Cubs are not, but the non-Dodger markets, okay, and maybe even the non-New York market. A lot of these teams saw what the Diamondbacks did 2 years ago, 84 wins, making the World Series, and are pointing to them more than they are the Dodgers. Hey, we could be them. And I'm not saying the Cubs are exactly like that, but your point is well taken. Their competition is the Central Division, and then we'll roll our dice in the playoffs. That's why Jed doesn't have to win the World Series this year to get a new contract. He has to make the postseason. Mm-hmm. And then it's anybody's guess. We saw what the Diamondbacks did. Maybe the Cubs go on a run. Maybe they don't. It doesn't matter. They got in.
Even if they somehow don't make the postseason, would you be shocked if Jed's not back? Because I kind of would be.
I would be.
If you asked me that a month ago, I would say I would be shocked. But, man, if they get beat out by the Brewers after having this nice lead for most of this first half, I don't know. I mean, if you're the owner and you keep getting beat by the smallest market in baseball, while you're, compared to Milwaukee, you are spending. You are spending compared to Milwaukee. I don't know. I could see Tom saying, just drawing a line in the sand, and he could have done this a year ago in his head. Jed makes the playoffs, he gets a deal. He doesn't make the playoffs, he doesn't. I could see that because the next GM is not going to make the $4 or $5 million that Jed's making, and I'll pay my GM less and have just as good a chance. Like, I could see these things going on in Tom's mind. I think, as I've reported from the beginning, they've been looking for reasons to bring Jed back, and he certainly has given them one. But if the second half goes south, that could change.
Also want to talk about Reef. Reef took everything you love about sandals and built it into shoes. Take the Neptune and Del Mar styles designed to feel good all day and look good doing it. The Neptune is the MVP. It's breathable, it's lightweight, and it has a collapsible heel for the slip-on cruisy living. The Del Mar, it steps it up with the more structure and style, good enough for date night, easy enough for every day. Both built full of technical failures, swell sole construction, expanded TPU insoles, engineered mesh uppers, and more. They're loaded. I was wearing them the other day, and someone's like, where'd you get those? Those things look great. I wore them in the course, actually.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, those things look awesome. I'm like, yeah. I wonder if I told you they're super comfortable, too.
Yeah.
Because that's what you get.
I had the same thing with the sandals.
Did you?
Yeah, someone was like, those look great, and they look super comfortable. I'm like, hey, good eye.
They are.
They are.
So go take a look at reef.com/stretch and use promo code STRETCH15 to get 15% off your first order over $49 or get free shipping on any order over $65. That's reef.com/stretch and use promo code STRETCH15 for 15% off your first order over $49.
But where's the accountability and ownership? I'm not I am specifically talking about the Ricketts in this instance, but like, we know that, we read the tea leaves that the Cubs didn't get the go-ahead because of financial constraints to sign a guy like Alex Bregman. After the season, if you're losing on the margins to a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, and you are looking in hindsight and say, hey, if we would have had that third baseman or whatever ex-player that they didn't sign because of money, that's on me as the owner, not on the GM who wasn't allowed to sign that guy, who literally has said, I wish I could have done it. I wish I had to go ahead.
Yeah, but again, Matt Arnold of the Brewers had no chance at the guy either. You know what I mean? It's not like the Brewers signed Bregman. And so if I'm Tom Ricketts, you could understandably say, even if we didn't sign Bregman, there's enough payroll there for you to win. I've given you 4 years since breaking up the team in 21 to rebuild this thing. Like, I've given you time. I've given you at least enough money to win the division, and it hasn't happened. So I don't think he's going to look in the mirror and say, if I'd only spent another $100 million on Bregman, when the Milwaukee Brewers didn't sign Bregman and aren't signing big money guys. So I think he's going to look at it the other way, or could look at it the other way.
I just think we as fans, and I say we as like baseball fans as a whole, the entire country, need to put more pressure on ownership for this exact situation we're talking about right here, because I'm thinking of this, and I'm a White Sox fan. I hope the Cubs lose every single game they play, and everything that's coming out of your mouth right now is frustrating me as a baseball fan, and it's backwards. I think your goal should be to obviously make the playoffs. The playoffs are a crapshoot, but your goal should be to win the World Series every single year. If you're the Chicago Cubs,
right?
And if money should be the absolute last thing coming out of anybody's mouth in that organization. You know that's baseball Disneyland. You know that they're making money elsewhere on top of just the baseball product itself. So it grosses me out. It really grosses me out.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is, I understand Cub fans want the Cubs to act like the Dodgers and Mets. Why not? It's New York, Chicago, LA. Those are the three big cities in our country.
I would want if I were the Cubs fan, I want the Cubs to win at all costs. Like you just said, you've never heard the Dodgers say anything about money, and they're in a similar financial position as the Cubs. I'm not saying the exact same, but similar.
Especially after you've given the fans, or you've been given a couple year respite.
Right.
Okay, Jed,
right.
We understand the championship team had to be pulled apart. We get it. It ran its course. Now, okay, from this point forward, all in. I understand that completely.
They should have learned from their mistakes, and it doesn't seem like they have. And that's baseball as a whole.
Well, Jesse, you covered solely the Cubs for a long time. Now you're national too. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get questions about that from some of these teams? Like, hey, I know you covered them. Why aren't they? What's the deal?
Well, I don't get it from other teams. I get it from agents. I get it from agents. That the line you just said. What's the deal? What's the deal? Because I think agents understand, obviously, as we all do, there's only a few big spenders in baseball. You know, the Rays, the Pirates. Like, if you have a great player, there's only 5 or 6 teams. Philly, the 2 New York teams, the Dodgers, maybe Houston once in a while, right? So they want the Cubs to be in there. I mean, I get people asking about the White Sox, but they've resigned the fact that Jerry's not going to spend, and it's kind of a different, you know, they don't bring in as much as the Cubs and stuff like that. So I certainly do get agents. But again, I see both sides. It is a $200 million plus payroll. It's just not a $300 million plus payroll, right? It is more than the division, but it's not more than the East and West Coast teams. It is probably enough to win the division. So I do see both sides, but it needs to be constantly, I think, you pay the tax every year from here on out. Now that we've allowed you to rebuild for a couple of years. So, you know, look, do I think Tom Ricketts is a bad owner? No. Do I think he's an owner like Steve Cohen or the Dodgers people? No. I think it's somewhere in between, and he should be closer to those big market teams than the smaller market teams. I get that. But yeah, I think that's kind of the answer there. Like, it can't just be better than Milwaukee. It has to try to be as good as the Dodgers and Mets and Yankees.
Yeah. Now, on the same note, we have the CBA expiration. Year and a half?
After next season,
December 26th.
Yeah.
What do you make of this situation now? Because it does kind of feel like you said. You have the Rays and you have the Dodgers, and there's a Grand Canyon between them. Do you think that we are heading towards a prolonged lockout strike?
My short answer is yes, but I don't. You know, it's too far out to know for sure. I'll say this: I think every 4 years, every CBA owners try to float that salary cap thing out there and try to find a way for everyone to sort of coalesce around it, meaning fans and media and just whatever, senators and just whoever they can find to sort of get on their side. And this year, I think they're hoping, or next year, this will be the tipping point because of what you just said. Mm-hmm. I think they love the fact that the Dodgers are spending like they are, so everybody can be like, "Oh my God, this system's not working." You can't have the Dodgers. Like, I think every 4 years they find a reason to get that salary cap out there. And this time around, it's this huge competitive imbalance, the payroll imbalance. And they're hopeful that there'll be enough momentum and even enough mid-tier players that would get behind a cap. Because, again, the cap would come with a floor and the ceiling. So I think they want to see how the momentum of a salary cap, goes as they start negotiations after this season. And if the momentum's there and they really dig their heels, meaning the owners, I think the union's going to absolutely dig their heels and we'll have the prolonged lockout. Now, I think there's economic systems to be had with a cap and without a cap to get a little bit more competitive balance. I'm not smart enough to know exactly the details of each of those systems, but you guys are smart. There's ways to find, there's better ways to do this where only the stars go to 5 or 6 teams.
Yeah.
Look at the NFL. Every team has a few stars via free agency, small market, big market. There's got to be a better way, with or without a cap, that the free agents get spread out a little bit more.
You bring up the White Sox, and obviously we have a timeline now here where the Ishbias will take over. You hearing anything about that? Is it going to be off to the races? Are they going to open the checkbook, or have you spent much time with them? What do you know about that?
Yeah, not a lot more than it's been publicly reported. I do know that Jerry wants to be in charge as long as he can, and that's why I think the contract was worded the way it was, or the deal, that the first opportunity would be in 2029. It is a young, energetic, kind of fun team right now, and I think Jerry would love to see this through with Chris Getz and see what it looks like in a year, as the years go on here through up till 2029. I don't know if Ishbia's influence will open the checkbook right away. I don't know that yet. But I do know that Jerry wants to stay in charge, whether that's bad news for Sox fans or not. I get it. But at least there's some hope with these young players.
Jerry wants to be in the boardroom for one more lockout.
Yeah, he is just salivating at the thought of locking those players out that even think about asking for anything more than league minimum. Like you just said yourself, he wants to see this thing through over the next 5 years. He turns, I think he turns 90 in February, right? He's 89 now.
Yeah.
I will tell you how these next few years will go. They're going to lose probably 105 to 110 games this year. Next year, they will lose 105 to 110 games. There's going to be a lockout in 2027. And then all these players that we're talking about that are fun, like Chase Mydroth, Kyle Teal, all these guys that, look like they're going to be quality big league players to whatever extent, are going to be back on the trading block. So every player they're selling us right now, it's going to be 4 years. They're going to be nearing the end of whatever, 6 or 7 year term length they're on right now, and they're going to be looking to be dealt because I have seen this movie before, and I know how the White Sox operate. So,
well, yeah, my big criticism of the last run was they never finished the rebuild.
They never finished it.
And that I assume has to do with the opening up the wallet, right? I mean,
your assumption's correct.
Although I have my doubts that Rick Hahn could have finished it. Like, I'm not sure that he would have done it the right way because I have my problems with how he built that team, all right-handed. There's a lot of things. But at least they were in a position to finish it, and they didn't sign their John Lester or, fill in the blank to really get it done. So you're right. We have seen this act before. Now, I do know that Chris Getz has slowly but surely, and you've seen this in public interviews, slowly turning the ship, better infrastructure behind the scenes, but that doesn't have to do with payroll.
No, it doesn't.
So we'll see when it comes time to add major payroll, will he be allowed? Our best guess is no. And you're right. We could end up in the same place we were after 23.
That is all but guaranteed. It's all but guaranteed, which is, to me, it's a gross indictment of Jerry Reinsdorf and his ownership, and as with baseball as a whole. It's gross. Like, I hear this all the time, and I used to be guilty of being one of these people, but like, for instance, I'll just use the extreme examples. Like Shohei Ohtani, he signed for $700 million. The White Sox just had a historically awful season, and I'm of the opinion that the worst team in baseball history should be looking to add the best baseball player that is available in free agency. We need to get to that spot as a league. Not just at the White Sox, but as a league, being like, hey, we are the worst team in baseball. We need to add the best player in baseball. I know it takes more than one player, but come on.
But that mentality.
They sell us on rebuilds too much, and it's every freaking team in baseball aside from, Dodgers, Mets, Yankees. Even the Cubs do it. The Cubs do it, and it's bad for business and bad for baseball.
I love the idea of a new CBA generating more parity, as we're talking about, right when the White Sox are getting a billionaire owner who's willing to splash around.
Right. Yeah, then there's going to be a $200 million salary cap. Everyone's got to spend the exact same, like football. And
there's so many ways to do it. If you have a cap, you create all sorts of loopholes. You can sign your own player more than just like the NBA, right? I don't even know how the NBA. There's so many ways to do it to spread out the stars, make it real competitive. And you're right. As soon as the Sox have that billionaire, it'll be a more even playing field. Because just like the Cubs, like the Sox could have owned that division. Nobody spends in the AL Central.
Flyover city after flyover city. I'm sorry. Yeah. St. Louis stinks. Milwaukee stinks. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh stink. Minneapolis stinks. Chicago should be running the AL Central and the NL Central year over year over year. Financially bully these other teams, but they don't do it.
Yeah, and the Cubs certainly are in a better position to attract free agents since 2016 and everything. They do a little. The Sox really haven't. I mean, we know that the organization, the infrastructure, all of it, not like it needs to be.
Sometimes I wonder if it just takes one, though, to change an era. Like, had they actually made the right offer to go get Bryce Harper.
That's a culture changer, right?
It's like, does that
could be, yeah,
the White Sox look different?
Philly,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said. If the worst team in the league gets the best player, that opens eyes.
Yeah. That opens eyes, right? And I mean, there was one kind of recent example of a team doing that. The 2021 or 22 Texas Rangers. They were in, I want to say, last place. They went out and signed Corey Seager, Jacob deGrom. They doubled down and they won the World Series.
Marcus Semien and Corey Seager in the same offseason.
Marcus Semien too.
It's a great example. Great example.
They didn't accept the failure. And they doubled down. They went and spent money, and they won a World Series because of it.
And they might have some issues moving forward as that contract. Simeon's already looking over. So what? Yeah, exactly. They got a World Series.
That's the goal.
They're actually in the hunt this year again, even though it's a 500 team. Like, you roll the dice and you go for it. That's the idea going for it.
Jesse, to kind of wrap this up here, second half, kind of predictions. What do you have? Do you see it kind of staying where it is? Is there any teams you expect to kind of creep up here in the wild card?
We haven't even talked about the Cardinals yet, really.
No.
Can they sneak in there in the NL Central, or is it a two-horse race?
I don't think so. I really don't. Race. I think, if anything, I think Cincinnati's going to be
or them
maybe a little. Yeah. I mean, the Cubs and Reds are the only two teams not to be swept in a 3-game series, and I don't know how telling that is, but what it tells me is the Reds have like a good foundation, like good starting pitching, and the lineup is a little bit suspect, after Ellie De La Cruz and a couple guys, Friedel got hot, but there's something there in Cincinnati. There's something there. So I think St. Louis has played over their skis. It's been a good storyline. I don't think they're going to be there in the end. Maybe in the wild card hunt. I think it's a 2-horse race. I think the Reds could make some noise as well. It's fascinating though, with the Cubs playing as well as they did, to only be a game up at the break. I mean, I say it's almost flawless baseball. They played great defense.
Yeah.
Their offense has been historic. They steal bases. Yes, their starting staff, because of injuries, a little bit suspect at times, but Colin Ray's been great. Matthew Boyd's been great. Cade Horton, a couple moments, here and there, but has been good. Bullpen's been amazing, and yet they're a game up. So that does scare me a little bit. On the other hand, maybe Milwaukee used up its good fortune here in just getting back into the race. Like, man, what a run they were on. Can they do that again for another 2 months? I think they'll push them, but the Cubs will stay on top.
There you have it.
That's Jesse Rogers, everybody.
Jesse, thank you. ESPN.com. Everyone could read your stuff there, correct?
You got it. Thanks, man. Really great being with you guys. Anytime.
Awesome.
Thanks,
really
Jesse.
Great baseball talk. Great yucking it up with you, Mr. Rogers.
You got it. Take care, guys.
See ya.